I think that life is winter, spring, summer, fall. I went about 25 years where it felt like my life was just summer. It was wild. I was living in Beverly Hills. I'm in with the who's who of Beverly Hills doing what I'm doing. So I was living in a lot of summer. But the reality was I had a brother that was struggling with the winter season. I had a mother who was struggling with illnesses at times. I was going through certain things in my life that were personal. But I remember I didn't want to leave my summer. Summer felt so good, but you also have to handle your winter. So maybe I'll go through a breakup and I'll just think, this is time of winter, or two people are suing me because I have a lot of money. I just see these things as a winter, or maybe something, I have an ailment at the gym and I hurt my shoulder. It's a winter season, but I want to continue to live in my summer and manage my winter.
Welcome back to the Better Human Podcast. This week, we have the one and only Tim Storey. If you don't know who this guy is, I don't know where you've been, but you are one of the gurus when it comes down to this world of life coaching and being successful. And you're also known as I don't want to say the comeback king, right? But it's helping people swing back, right, from some of the life's big challenges that's been thrown at them. Tim, welcome to the show, my man.
Good to be here. And in studying you, it's my team and I, we're loving what you're doing and helping people, building people, helping people become the leaders they're supposed to be. So
Correct.
I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. We were chatting a little bit before the show, and I was saying the intention behind this is we get to sit down with amazing experienced coaches and thought leaders and authors and just impactors, quotations, better humans, better leaders. And we want to hear their stories and get their perspective. So here's where I want to kick off with you, right? I mean, you've worked with some of the biggest. I mean, in the thought leadership industry, Lewis Howes, Grant Cardone, in the music industry, Quincy Jones, Stevie Wonder. You work with Oprah. I mean, you are world renowned when it comes down to coaching. Some of the best listen to you. So I want to get as much as I can out of you today, selfishly.
Yeah.
Let's start with your latest book, The Miracle Mentality. What is it? Where does it go? What is the book all about?
So that was kind of cool. It came from my traveling because I've traveled a lot. I've now been to 78 countries of the world.
Yeah.
And I would be talking to people in various countries and they would talk to me about their lives. And I found that their lives were in these various categories, like the mundane. Some felt like their life was just mundane, just regular. And then some felt like their life was messy, disheveled. And then some felt like, Tim, my life is out of control. It's gone into the madness. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking to myself, wow, if life has become mundane, so messy, stepped into the madness, what happened to the miracle? What happened to the magical?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a cool story about Walt Disney. And he walked into an amusement park back in the 30s and he said, I'm going to build my own amusement park. But mine's going to be different, better, and more magical. Different, better, more magical. Well, July 1955, they opened Disneyland and it was different, better, more magical. So that's how I started with this idea of, can we really still have magical living? Can we still have a miracle mentality? Can we go back to our childhood and align ourselves with that innocence? So I went and got one of the best editors named Nick Childs. He taught at Princeton University for a long time. Now he's at University of Georgia, African-American man. And man, we just went at it. Boom, 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 boom for a year. And I think we created something that's just beautiful. The miracle mentality, how to work from mundane, messy, madness, and tap into the miracles. Yeah.
So when it comes down to the three areas of mundane, messy, and out of control, chaotic, I mean, I was relating a lot to that. I was thinking about the world that we live in today. This is people's world. This is their environment. Is it always in that order that it starts out mundane, then gets messy, then gets out of control? Or is it kind of these are the three sort of challenges that we're going to go through, and it's just different. We could all go through different orders.
Different orders, no doubt. So it's almost like if you were in a hotel and you had mundane first floor, messy second floor, madness third floor. You're absolutely correct, because somebody's life can go into madness that fast. I call it a life interruption. So like if somebody is a parent and they get a call at 2 or 3 in the morning, and let's say they had 2 teenagers that were out that night, it's not going to be good. Yeah. So you could be like living your life really well, and all of a sudden madness hits, chaotic. So to me, pandemic and isolation was level 3. That was a lot of madness hitting people at once. So it wasn't an escalation in that case. Sometimes it's an escalation. Sometimes it's just suddenly it just becomes that other thing.
Right. I agree with the pandemic, and in fact, that was what I was sharing with you before. Part of the reason I moved down to Costa Rica with my family was I needed to remove that madness. Right, we needed something a little calmer. Let's talk each 3. So, what is a mundane life? What does it look like? What are some examples of that? How does it show up in our mental health? And then let's do the same for messy and out of control.
Okay, so I think mundane is not always terrible. I think that people, like if you study Sam Walton, he loved living in the mundane. I went to the Sam Walton Museum twice in the state of Arkansas, right around Bentonville. And he literally loved living in the mundane. He was into his red truck, his kids and his grandkids, and he just liked living in the mundane. I know a lot of people who thrive in the mundane. So mundane is not terrible, but what I say in my book, Miracle Mentality, is you have to learn to master the mundane, because otherwise mundane can creep into your relationship if you're married, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your job, where it just becomes status quo. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it almost becomes like we're on autopilot, right? There's not a lot of consciousness and intention and growth. It's just kind of where we're just always floating across, or just moving along.
Excellent way of saying it. So you have the mundane. The messy, to me, is something that's usually subtle. Like I remember getting in my friend's car recently, and he said, "Hey, sorry for the mess." But the mess had to do with the fact that he's a father of 2 kids. So back there was a baseball glove. Back there was a McDonald's cup. Back there was the kids' homework, because I sat in the back because I like his kids, so I was teasing with his kids. So I think that the messy is just something that needs to be dealt with on a daily basis, because you can be messy in your car, but you could also be messy in your mindset,
right?
Messy in your relationships. And if you're not careful, what I believe is 9 out of 10 times the mess will grow unless it is dealt with.
Right. I was going to say the messy also sounds like a stage that can contribute to positive growth, right? Which is, this becomes a catalyst, the Kickstarter for me to grow, but it's going to require a little bit of, again, governance, observation. All right, because if we're not careful, that can, as you said, maybe slip into feeling out of control, the madness.
Yeah, believe me, I like the way you think. So I think you're adding some semantics in the way my mind doesn't even work, and I like what you're saying. But no doubt about that. So you have the mundane and you have the messy. The madness, to me, is the chaotic. And I think that more people live in and out of states of madness without even realizing it. And the madness is this idea of like something is effing out of control. Right. Like, I don't like my wife anymore. Because I coach people. I hear stuff like this. I love her, but I don't like her. I don't like my job. I've been here 18 years. I'm running an amazing company, making tons of money. So the madness is that chaotic that just gets out of control. But one reason that we have to manage our madness is because right when you think you had a certain portion and degree of madness, it can really get mad.
It can unravel.
And unravel big time.
Right.
Big time. And that's where a lot of people were with around 2008 with the housing crisis. That's where a lot of people are right now. Even coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people moved into the state of madness. Like for me, as being my doctorate's in world religion, master's is in counseling therapy. Mm-hmm. I've never been more busy with executive coaching some of the biggest companies in the world and all the stuff I'm doing with celebrities, with being a therapist. I've never been more busy. And I think a lot of it is pandemic related and the after effects of it.
1,000%. You know, I've been floating this whole idea, like internally, just my own notes and trying to sort of, you know, not build a concept, but go, okay, what is one of the issues? And then, you know, how does the work and the coaching that I do start to address that? And I keep coming back to this. And let me ask you your thoughts or get your opinion on this. I think people are broken, like severely broken. And not just, you know, the small majority, the minority, but the majority of people. And if we're not careful, if people don't start to, and I like what you talk about here, which is the madness, if people don't get a grip and control on this, it will unravel even further. Do you think that? Do you agree? What are your thoughts? I mean, as I said, do you think people are broken? What came to mind?
Yeah, so I would say they are. So let's try to break down the word broken. Mm-hmm. Because I think that there's degrees of brokenness. Like you could have a toy that a kid's playing with, and maybe the wheel just falls off. Okay. Or you could have the toy that the kid is playing with and something squashed it. And now only half of the toy is like functioning. So I do believe that there's a lot of us that are working through a broken state. And so what I like to do is I like to isolate the problem. Like, how broken are you? Are you broken mentally because somebody left you? So now we don't have clarity of mind and strength of mind. Are you broken in your body because you're struggling with illness? Are you broken in your emotions just because you can't seem to get it together and working through anxiety and depression? So I think you would agree with that. So I think we need to isolate the problem and diagnose what level of brokenness we're in and at, and then really get serious about how we're going to remedy this brokenness.
In today's world, do you think there's more appetite for remedy, or do you think there's more comfort in a lack of action, in the statement of I'm depressed, in the this is normal now. Everyone's got anxiety. It's normal.
Yeah, I think that that most people are trying to get back to the place of fun, happy, I'm entertained, I just had an amazing weekend. And I really think that that's not always the great alignment that one should have. I think that life is winter, spring, summer, fall.
That's a great analogy.
I went about 25 years where it felt like my life was just summer. It was wild. You know, I was living in Beverly Hills. I was getting guys on Tuesdays and coming up and washing, you know, some amazing cars I had. I'm in with the who's who of Beverly Hills doing what I'm doing. So I was living in a lot of summer. But the reality was I had a brother that was struggling with the winter season. I had a mother who was struggling with illnesses at times. Yeah. I was going through certain things in my life that were personal. But I remember, Greg, I didn't want to leave my summer. That summer felt so good. like that summer was like to have the sun in my face and I'm beaming. I'm like, oh my God, I made it.
Yeah, but you kind of had to be in order to do the work that you did or do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you need some summer, but you also have to handle your winter, because that winter and that summer, even though it doesn't always happen this way within like functioning in different states like California, you don't usually see too many days where it's very summery and then like a cold front comes in an hour. You might see that in somewhere like Michigan.
Right.
But I think we're on the right track, that as long as I know there's winter, spring, summer, fall, I'm cool. And so maybe I'll go through a breakup and I'll just think this is time of winter, or two people are suing me because I have a lot of money and they want to find a way to sue me. I just see these things as a winter, or maybe something. I have an ailment at the gym and I hurt my shoulder. It's a winter season, but I want to continue to live in my summer and manage my winter.
Yeah, I love that. And if you've ever been in a winter in Michigan and Canada, you're prepared for it. You have boots, gloves, mitts, hats, jackets, layers, right? So you dress for the season, right? Unless you're coming from the Caribbean and you show up in a winter place and you got no winter clothes, right? So, but we'll figure that one out. I really like the analogy of life is a season. I asked you this before we were going to start recording. We said let's come back to it a little later. How did this all begin for you? The life coaching, the work that you do, the impact you're making. Where did this all begin?
I think it came from just being very regular, Like my mother is Spanish. Her name is Vicentita Gonzalez. My father is Cuban Black, so I'm Black in Spanish. My mother had a 6th grade education. My father had a 10th grade education. I was born in Compton Hospital, Compton, California. Stayed there for a period of time. But being raised in a lower income family did a lot for me on the positive, because we had 7 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I want you to know that's not a lot of room.
Yeah, that's tight.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how you shape it, it's tight. So what we did, we had my 3 sisters in one room, me and my brother in the living room, and then we had my parents in their own room. So I found out later, my parents had their own bathroom, so that was good, because sometimes 2 bedrooms only have 1 bath. They had their own bathroom, but then we had to have 5 people using another bathroom. But here's a cool thing. My mother always taught us we are lower income, but we are not lower class. So I want you to know our house was spotless. Like, my sisters are just machines when it comes to the area of cleanliness and cooking. And then the same thing hit me and my brother. And then, over a period of time, which took a lot of time, we went from a 2-bedroom apartment. When we first got our 3-bedroom house, I thought we were so rich. I was like,
we made it.
Such a good feeling. But my childhood, I enjoyed. There was a lot of pain in it. My father died when I was 10 in a car accident. But I realized that that's just part of life. Sometimes you got to get left before you get right. And I've always been this chill, except on stage. I explode stages, but outside of stage, I'm this low key.
That's cool. It's interesting because you hear this story a lot, which is people's backgrounds, where they've come from more diversity, more challenge, more difficulty, I think have more of a resilience and a mindset to manage things effectively today. And, I can't tell you how many times I've thought this, which is This person has just lived too soft of a life and hasn't felt the pain and the stress and the challenge. And now that they're adults, they're feeling a little bit, and there's just not enough oomph there to manage it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. The pain will always come. You cannot avoid it. Mm-hmm. And as you know, I work with the biggest celebrities over the world. I have over 300 entertainers I work with, and there's no other life coach therapist that has that many and level of the ones that I have. And I say that because I'm not good at everything. Don't ask me to cook a gourmet meal. But in the area of helping somebody who is going through recovery and they're then trying to transition into discovery, that I cannot be beat at. I'm friends with Dr. Phil, Dr. Drew, Dr. Oz. I like Deepak Chopra. I get to run with all these people and do a bunch of projects. But in this particular field, I've mastered it. And what I like from being good at this particular skill set is how I can really help people realize that this is just life.
Right.
Life is predominantly good, but it has some challenges. But we can enjoy where we are on the way to where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, the challenges don't need to derail us. They don't need to be bad. I look at things as like, this is part of the path. This is the thing that now just needs to be the next obstacle or challenge to move through, right? Doesn't mean you're naive about it. Doesn't mean that there's an absence or there's just the sitting and wishing that it's going to become better, right? But it's here to serve in some way. I've believed that from the day I can remember, which is this happens for a reason. In fact, I say that all the time. I'm like, all right, well, this happened for a reason. Now what? Where do we go from here? But I'm really interested in your terminology or your description of recovery to discovery. What is the process of recovery, and then what is discovery?
Okay, so I'm writing this down. To recover means to mend, to be restored. So it's a state of restoration. To mend, to restore, to heal. Okay. If I was to life coach you, there are things in your life where you are going through recovery. Everybody is going through recovery and discovery at the same time. So I meet with the biggest stars in the world, and you would sit with who would maybe at that point be the number one or number two female star. Mm-hmm. But the more I'd get to know them, I would find that there was beautiful things that were happening. Maybe their movie opened number 3. Maybe they have a new cosmetic company, and they're making tons of money and maybe married or dating somebody famous. Mm-hmm. But then they would say to me, but my mother's having trouble, or my brother's fighting through addiction, or I've been having physical problems. So that's recovery, right?
Right.
Mend, restore, healing. Discovery is a beautiful word. Discovery is that we have the ability to always find new amazing things. It's excitement of if you have a little kid and you discover they can put their words together. That's discovery. A little boy that couldn't ride a skateboard and now he does. A little girl that needed training wheels and now she doesn't. So my life of being discovered in the discovery zone was things like speaking when I was in my 20s and I looked out there and there was Denzel Washington. So I found out why he was there. He was there shooting a movie in the city I was in. And the lady says, he adores you. Can he come and meet you? Well, this began to be a big thing in my life in my 20s where famous entertainers would come and see me. I've never sought one entertainer out. So, but at the same time that was going through, I was still working through my father's death. My brother was still dealing with addiction, but yet I was chilling with Robert Downey Jr. So It's weird how life could be recovery and discovery at the same time.
Yeah. That's a really great way of putting it. You keep using the word restoration, and I'm sure you know the concept of debriefing. When someone's gone through a traumatic event or a life event or a big situation, debrief them. But there's 4 stages to that. But the final stage is something called, as you've been describing, restoration and reorganization, right? So we've healed and we've restored to more normality, right? And we've been able to reorganize how we now function and manage those situations. And, as we were talking about the pandemic and people being broken, I just wanted to come back to that to say there is a massive exercise in all of us right now to debrief and to exhaust the stuff that people have been carrying. I mean, the pandemic did one thing very, very specifically, which was isolate people. And the way, I'm sure you appreciate this, a lot of people cope is by going inward, internalization, muddling up, biting the tongue, backpacking it for later, right? I'll come back to this tomorrow. And if we don't clear that out, I have a friend, psychologist, actually, I've worked with him in the past. He says, you got to empty your basement every once in a while. You don't empty your basement, those boxes are going to gather and, you're going to have a messy basement. And that's what debriefing and unpacking the stuff is. But it's part of the process of, as you're describing, the recovery, the healing of the stuff. And, what I like about the process, and I'm sure you'll agree and appreciate, is that the process leads to restoration. And if we're willing to go through that, we will restore.
Yes, but because on this podcast, some of my followers will be introduced to you for the first time and vice versa. So when you give your different stages of debriefing, give me a couple more of those so I can write those down.
So debriefing has 4 steps. So step 1 is let the individual tell their story. So father's death, right? Okay. Sit down and they begin to tell the story of the relationship, of the death, of all the things. The problem with step 1 is we, as the person on the other end, mess up the person, because as they are beginning to tell us their story, if we're not careful, we begin to fix them. Well, you shouldn't feel this way, and you should do this, and you should do that. And what this does is when people are exhausting and expressing and telling their story, they're releasing it. And every time we jump in, we're sort of shoving that back down on them. The other thing we do, if we're not careful, we criticize people, right? You're being too sensitive, right? Your brother will get over it, right? He's got the right tools, right? What are you wasting your time for? Right? So we end up in this critical sort of judgmental position. We minimize. That's the worst thing we do as human beings. Oh, it's okay. Tomorrow's a new day, right? You'll get better, like blah, 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 right? So if we do step 1 very well, which is let them tell their story, we can now get to the next stage of the debriefing process, which is what is called mining the details or digging for the questions. So we're asking very specific questions about the event, right? About, for example, the father's death, we ask about that. We're not getting into questions about future projections and feelings. It's just walk me through that. Because the concept behind it is when we experience this stuff, we're experiencing it through what my language is something called the child ego state, the survival state. I'm feeling through this, right? What I haven't governed or what I haven't been able to do is walk back through that situation through what we call the adult state. More of the intelligent, rational, cerebral, okay, I could process what happened, right? Car accidents, businesses failing, divorces, like it's all events, right? Step 3 is normalizing their position or their experience or feelings. So what the normalizing is we're not trying to normalize bad behavior, but what we're trying to acknowledge is the way they felt or the frequency they responded or reacted with is normal. We've all been angry, right? We've all been sad. We've all been disappointed. We've all felt abandoned. We've all, I could empathize and normalize your experience and feelings to that because I felt that way too. And then step 4 is the restoration and the reorganization. And if you follow these steps, and therapists use it and psychologists use it, which is when people have gone through major events, how do we debrief through this? And I think the point is, to the pandemic, I don't know if a lot of people have debriefed through that. People sort of just woke up one day and said, okay, let's go back to normal.
Is there a book that you read on this? Because I would like to study more on this.
I will send you everything afterwards. I got a bunch of literature and stuff. There's a couple different doctors that were the ones that did it. There's a whole history lesson behind it, which we won't get into now. But I would
love to see that because I'm in the recovery space. Like I have owned recovery centers in the past, and I still work in this space. And then I do some things with Dr. Amen from Amen Clinics. Then I am the executive mental health coach for a gaming community. Then I work in prison reform with helping people that have had setbacks. So, Greg, this is really good information. So you don't mind sending it to my guy, Joseph?
I will hook you up. I'll hook you up with everything. And if you have time after this, I will actually walk you through maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes, not today, but we could schedule another time. And I will present the debriefing model, the history of it and where I learned it and stuff. And it was my ex-partner, which I got to give him credit. We didn't end the relationship well, but as someone to learn from, he added a lot to my life, which was, I think he came in at the right time, and I learned a lot from him. And he was a clinical psychologist, and he was the one that introduced it to me.
Greg, if I can go there, when I think about the miracle mentality, and Walt Disney said, I want to live a life that's different, better, more magical.
Right.
In the fact that I am so optimistic, I'm so realistic too. And that is, I don't think we stay in this state of just the magic, the extraordinary, the uncommon, the not regular, because I get a chance to be behind the scenes of people that one would think that way. Like I've known Kim Kardashian since she was 14 years of age.
Yeah.
Her dad, Robert Kardashian, was one of my good friends. I saw Kylie Jenner, who's now a billionaire, and Kendall since they were little girls. And then I've worked with Kanye West since 2006. So, I get to see a lot of things that are just like way out there. But you don't know behind the scenes before they get in the vehicle to go to the place and then to look magical through cameras and filters and everything else. And I actually like those girls, okay? I don't think I make all the choices they've made, but I would not make all the choices I made when I was 19. So we're all growing. But the reason I say that is I think that this idea of the miracle mentality, don't forget it's a mentality, it's a mindset. Our mindset is ours to set.
Right.
So it's not like we're living in a constant state of euphoria, but we can't have the mindset that says there's more to life than what I'm living.
1,000% agree. 1,000%. And that's the one thing that I think we are in control of, even though we feel that we're not in control of our mindset. Right? We can't always control our thoughts, but we can then choose or control what we then do next, right? That I have choice over, that I have domain over, that I have control over. It's what do I now do with this? Man, I wish I had another several hours with you, but we'll have to beg for some more time next time.
No, there will not be any begging. I like who you are, so we'll set something up. And
good.
Proud of you. I'm proud of you for what you guys are pulling off.
Thank you, man. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. We come to the end of the episode and we ask the most important question, right? And just before we go there, I love the description of miracle mindset or miracle mentality, right? It is a mentality, and it's not to negate the mundane and the messy and the madness. It's to add the fourth M in there, right? Which is we can get there. Very powerful and very simple. As mentioned at the end, we come to the better human question, which is what do you think we could do to be better humans tomorrow?
Okay, so let me think this through and write it down. So what can we do to become better humans
Tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to one of my classic sayings. Today's decisions are tomorrow's realities, because we're talking about tomorrow.
Right.
So my decision, if I can just work through this real quick, is if I strengthen my mindset, I could have a better tomorrow. If I exercise and move, I could have a better tomorrow. If I practice positive self-talk, I could have a better day tomorrow. If I walk in forgiveness, I could have a better day tomorrow. If I do what Robert Schuller says, pause for applause, I could have a better day tomorrow. So I daily go through these things, Greg, and I'm grateful. And I say, hey, if I do these things, today's decisions are tomorrow's realities. And then they affect me for that next day. And then I just do them again and again and again. And that's called life.
Yeah. Yeah. And habits.
Yes.
Awesome. To the audience, Tim, where could people learn more about you? What have you got upcoming? Obviously, we're going to get all your information posted in the show notes and the footnotes, but do you want to drop any of your links right now?
Yeah, that's nice of you. So I have timstorey.com, and it's Storey. Okay. And that has a lot there. So one of the things that I do is I still do one-on-one coaching, but it's more like coaching and brand building. So it's like 3 sessions. If they're interested, should they DM me or what should they do?
Yeah, they can DM you, I guess. Well, obviously, if they're at your website, they can maybe do an info request. But if you're on Instagram, Tim Storey, Storey, I'm sure they can just DM you and reach out. Maybe say that they heard you on the show.
I work with amazing people like you that are watching, and I do 2 sessions on Zoom, and then 1 if you're able to do it. And the price is so low for what I do. But then I'm very excited about something that I do called the World Shaker Society, and it's a community for men who are into growth. And I have like amazing humans from all over the world. So it's only at 71 men, and I'm only going to grow it to about 100. And we've had over 3,000 people request to be part of the group. Wow. And we said, why don't we let them in? A lot of it's motive. It's not just to use some of the guys that are in the group that are obviously super powerful, but it's us all coming in as equals and caring about each other and growing each other. So World Shaker Society. And if you need any information on that, DM me. And then last thing, I'm excited about my show on Reach TV in over 80 airports around the world. So I do my own talk show, and then I do something called Questions and Answers with Tim Storey. So you got to put up with me when you go to the airports. So almost every day of my life, Jesse Itzler, Ed Milatt, all these people are going, dude, you're like gigantic. So they show my show once every 4 hours. So that's kind of cool.
Amazing. Well, the airport can be messy and mad. So they probably need a little bit of Tim Storey in the airport just to make sure everyone's calm and they get on their plane and they arrive and they're not so stressed out. So I think it's a good location for you to be in.
Thank you very much.
All right. To the audience, I hope you liked today's episode. Let's definitely go follow Tim if you're not following him already. Go check out his website, timstorey.com. It's got all the information there. If you have not picked up his book, Miracle Mentality, now is the time to do so. You could Amazon that. I'm sure you could just Google it and it will pop up in several different places. And of course, the offer to check out World Shakers Society is very, very cool. Tim, I appreciate you. Thank you. This was a big moment for me in my career to sit down at this level and have this conversation. So, it was amazing. Amazing.
Greg, you're fantastic. And I hope we can collaborate and do some things together. I like your knowledge, your information, and the way you're changing lives. So it is a privilege to talk to you today.
Appreciate that. To the audience, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share. Definitely go and follow Tim, and we will see you next week. Stay happy, stay healthy. See you soon.